Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Berlin Select Board meeting for Monday, November 7th, 2022. It is 6:45. We had advertised this meeting to start early so that we could have an executive session, which at this point is actually not needed. But since the meeting was advertised to start at this time, it is starting at this time, and we will take things out of order. But why don't I start then with our announcements that meetings, the Berlin Select Board are generally recorded for transmission on both the Berlin Cable Access Channel and YouTube. Your voice, your image, and your telephone number may be recorded, which is fun to say on a recording. Let's start with the just start of the meeting and work our way through then. Approval of minutes. The agenda actually says October 31st. We did not meet on October 31st. We met on November 1st. But I'm assuming we can still do that since it is the meeting of that week that was advertised. I was not at that meeting, so can't comment on the status of the minutes.
And those are the minutes that were in our Google Drive, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
I would say that qualifies as a Scribner's error.
Right. So I would make a motion to approve the November 1st open session meeting minutes.
I'll second them.
Great. Hawkins is abstaining.
Keith, aye.
Stone eye.
Hey, Kristen, there's correspondence for us to discuss.
I do not have correspondence, but I actually wanted to quickly ask you all, do you prefer to receive correspondence through the meeting? I've been kind of sending correspondence in a more timely manner rather than saving it all up for the meeting, as there are kind of FYI things. I've been sending them via email. If it's something that needs to be discussed in a meeting, I've been putting it on an agenda. So I don't know how you all feel about that. I wanted to just check in with you.
I know that for me, this section is for sort of correspondence is a great place for announcements of things that we just want on the record that was done. I definitely agree that I don't want you to wait a week or forget any formal permissions for us to send anything out. Emailing us as you respond or including us in the ones you think is fine by me. Chris, Peg?
I think it's fine.
What's fine, Peg?
That she doesn't need to hang on to them. If there's something that she needs to address, go ahead.
I mean, I feel like just anything that maybe was important enough to note even up to the meeting.
Okay, and those would be just kind of FYI items anyways, anything that would be of importance that would require any deliberation or discussion would go on an agenda.
Right.
So as not to be in violation of, open meeting law.
I think sometimes it's also just under correspondence, things that it's neat for the public to know that we're actually aware of and are working on. I think that potentially, I've read a bunch of emails, both work and here too, but SA Farms, that there has been some more correspondence on it. The DEP is still doing some site visits. Those are sometimes worthy of just noting so that people know that we're aware of them and are working on them. But I think, again, it's as much a notice as anything else.
As far as DEP notification, that's what's needed if you have a complaint about SA Farms.
Right. It's public comment for the couple of folks in the audience who are mostly presenters, but if you want to raise your hands, if you have something to say, the general department update is not a time certain, so that we could, as we're seeing if people in the audience want to say anything, promote Chief Clark forward, and assuming he is ready at 6:49 to do a departmental report. Oh, I think you're still muted, Chief. There we go.
Good evening, everybody. Nice to see everybody.
Good evening.
Evening.
You got to look at the fire department October report. The big things that we're working on, we had on public education, the community engagement program. We had a very, very successful open house that was very well attended with people from the community. we estimated by giving out the tickets to use for a raffle was about 185 people attended, which is really good. They did one time and they got like 20 something. So that's a step in the right direction. So
Yeah,
the bar is set. So it's like, we got through Fire Prevention Week, good. A certified public fire, personal life safety person is Michelle DeVoe. Two things with her. She worked with the school and we brought all the Memorial School children to the fire station for a visit, safety talk, showed them the equipment we wear, quick tour of the apparatus floor and some of the noted equipment that we get to use all the time. Very, very successful. We were very happy with it. And she also, for the first time, applied for and received a SAFE grant, which is Student Awareness of Fire Education. I think that's the acronym. I'm not good at acronyms, so, but she got a $1,500 grant. We found out she got it. They haven't sent out like the contract side of it that will work with the TA on, but it's like, she found out that it was successful for $1,500. That will buy her handouts and things like that and pay for some of the time that she has scheduled to be in the building. So it's a really good program and there's nothing better like, those kids to see. Oh, there's a firefighter coming in today. And when Michelle walks in, they all like, oh, awesome. Cause she's like, being a female firefighter is a huge thing now. And it's like, and they really respond well to her. I got to watch a bunch of her presentations and I'm very happy where she is and sky's the limit for her. So it's like, I'm happy with the program and it's taken off and it will grow and grow and grow. So that's, I'm trying to think of any other big ticket items that we got that we want to talk about. We did a couple of building fires in the same day in October. It was a Sunday. And they got back from one in Bolton and they didn't even have the truck back in service and went to another one in Stowe. Really good rippers. So it's like you guys got some good hands on at both scenes. And they left Freddie and I here going to the second one to get the ladder truck back in service. So Freddie and I pitched in and we got it all back ready to go. They just laid stuff on the floor and they went, which is, so it's like, things have been good. It's been fairly busy. You say that you can see the call run numbers are up a little bit and we're getting a lot of, and it's funny here because it's more of a balance between the fire and EMS than most places. But you got a lot of commercial for your small community, so it's a good thing. So they get exposed to a lot of different things and are comfortable with it. But that's about it. The EMS credits is good. They're going so far this year. You can see that there is listed out the billing and the credits and that's kind of like where we are day here. And it's like every day something comes up, we just deal with it like always. And it's like it's life in the fast lane. So it's like if you have any questions for me, I'll field them the best that I can. Go ahead, Chris.
so did you have the entire Berlin Memorial School student body there?
We did, well, not at once, Chris. We walked them
Okay.
down. We staged them over. I think it was 3 days. So that they
Okay,
all came. Yep. No, that would have been a zoo. That's like
no kidding.
that's like trying to herd kittens when you do that. You know what I mean? So it's like I know she spaced it out really good. I think it was 2 classes at a time, and it went really well. The teachers were very happy. Get good feedback from them, and they sent back some drawings and things like that and little stories of their visit to the firehouse. And it was like, it's really fun to read them. Come back in a big manila envelope. And it's like, it was really good. We sent it back. We actually were reading them one day at lunch. So it's like, nope, you can tell you get the point across and they're getting it. You know what I mean? You hit those bullet points hard and on the safety side and they're remembering them and
Well, I'll have to ask my grandkids about it.
oh yeah, yep. No one said anything. We would have we would have had them come up and do one of the tools or something like that. We had the thermal imaging cameras going and touching the wall. Everyone was like, well, I can't believe you can measure that little bit of heat on the wall from someone touching the wall for 5 seconds. And it's like, so it's like really like, it was a really good day along in the open house. We had a lot of fantastic questions from the community that it's like, that the people come in and it prompted questions when they saw the equipment and this and that. So it's like, that we had a good month. So it's like, I'll take that anytime. And it's like, I'd rather deal with them that way 100 times. So it's like, nope, I'm happy with how the month went, and the public education is going in a good direction. And Michelle's got that going, and the ball's been handed to her and she'll run with it.
Good.
Peg, do you have
I
questions?
have tons of questions. If you have any, go ahead. I've got
I was just gonna note that it was nice to see the Lieutenant Polito's first fire prevention officer report and what's going on there. And looks like, of course, tons at Highland Commons, some of which we're aware of, and I'm sure we'll talk about the open house at Ella Bean later, but it was nice to see. It was decently written. I could see what's going on from his report, so.
Yeah, and he looked at reports he used to receive from Dave and kind of changed the format a little bit. And but there's a lot going on behind the scenes that it's like he's got a really, really good grasp on that. I was assigned to that position for 16 years and I've been able to help him a little bit, but he picked it up really, really quick. He gets it. His interpersonal skills, which is critical for that position, is really, really good. And so
I was
again,
pleased.
moving
I was-
on.
I was pleased to see that if he didn't know something, he wasn't afraid to ask somebody.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah,
that's great.
no,
Gotta do
Again,
that.
he's established a really good relationship with the building inspector, which is critical. That's always been a strong point, to be able to tag team a building inspector and a fire inspector in place and answer all the questions that a tenant may have. So it's like that's going really, really well. Him and Richard, they go upstairs and meet. I don't know if it's daily, but it's often. So it's like he's not afraid to, like you said, not afraid to reach out and ask a question, which is really good.
Peg?
So no, I just wanted to definitely acknowledge Michelle for the reading that she did at the library. I heard it went over really well. So, kudos to her. And then, kudos to you and your staff too, for being down at the Halloween giveaway celebration or whatever in the center of the town. I mean, it's always nice to sit behind you guys because it's well lit until you take off, and then I sit in the dark, which makes me a little bit more creepier. So staff, do you have any openings? Are you all set with everything?
The interim position that we worked with the personnel committee to develop the job description was filled last week. We got all that. There's a lot of paperwork involved with getting it done, as the TA knows. It's not her first rodeo, so she helped us through that. And it's like, got that all done. So our career positions, one's filled with that interim until the TA and the new chief at some point make a decision whether we're going to stay BLS, go to ALS, and then you can make a decision on that position. So it's like, timing was perfect. You couldn't ask for a more perfect time to be able to have the opportunity to do that. You don't see that much. It's rare, but it worked out for us. So, and one other thing about Michelle at the library, they bailed on her to go on a call and left her there. And it's like, she called for a ride. I had to go get her. She says, Chief, can you come get me? I said, I'll be right there, Michelle. Be right there.
Oh, well done. Hey, have you had any more thoughts? I know that Michael Wheeler was the one who was doing this, but since he's gone, have you had any more thoughts or discussions about holding a townwide CPR and or first aid class?
The discussion is always there. We're still a little bit leery of putting all those people in a small room, but
Yep.
when you say townwide, it'll be like 1 month, it'll be like
Yeah.
for professionals research, and the next, but it's moving. It's just like, we're still like treading lightly going there. You know what I mean? We got, so, but it's right there. We've identified our in-house instructors and everyone's in. We just kind of like, wait till everyone's really happy. We've done our in-house CPR. Lieutenant Colony does that. And it's like him and Ben Matthew. So it's like they did that. And that's some of the names that come up when you talk about doing some community CPR, and it's like, and the other thing about that Michelle does that we've been busy with is the infant car seat installations. I think
Oh, nice.
there's been 4 or 5 like in the month, so it's like been busy. So that's
Wow.
like, so people come in and it's usually new families learn how to do it, and it's like, I'm like, what do you mean you need to teach someone to do that? So it's like, you just throw them in, snap it down and like go, you know what I mean? But there's a technical way to do it. And she's as part of a public education coordinator has volunteered to take over that function also. So we try to keep engaged with the community, and it's like been very positive. It's good to get the feedback. She keeps it really light, and it's interesting to watch. They pull the car right in the station, do it. And it's like,
Nice.
especially if it's bad weather, but no, that's on the tip of the spear, Peg. It's just like, are we done of
I know.
stuff? So it's like, no, that's like, that's one of my major negative things that I feel like I dropped the ball on, you know what I mean? Because of what's going on, but it's like, it is what it is.
Well, Chief, it's not so much dropping the ball, but unfortunately, the world fell apart for a couple of years, so
Yeah.
everybody kind of went into standstill. And then last question, do you guys have any equipment yet for the room downstairs? Were you getting a grant, applying for a grant, got a grant?
When you say the room downstairs, the training EOC room?
Yeah, the exercise equipment?
Oh, the exercise equipment, that's up and working. That's fully functional and that's being used. Let me see what we got in there. We got with Margaret, got something through MIIA. I don't know what they call it, the insurance, got a really good treadmill. I got a Rogue bike and a Rogue rower, which I use at my CrossFit, which is like, they're awesome. They pound them at CrossFit and here they'll last forever. So it's like, what else? There's some free weights. I won a kettlebell at a contest, and so I donated it to the gym here. You know what I mean?
Aw,
So it's like, it's there, and I know the guys here hey, Chief, they'll come by in their shorts during the day shift and say, we're going to the gym, and if we go, we'll come out the bottom door and meet you by the ambulance to go. So it's like, nope, they'll go down, and I shouldn't say the guys. When I say that, I mean it both
the team.
male and female, the team, you know what I mean? I always say that to Michelle, you're one of the guys, it's all right. So it's like, but no, we and I mean that from my heart. They're all definitely part of the team. Jasmine and Michelle and Melanie, who we don't see much, but she'll be back. So it's
Good.
like, no, that's up and running. And if there's any town employees that want to go in there and use that, the door's locked because of what's in there. All I gotta do is come up and ask for the key. They can have the key as long as they want. And it's good for someone to ask for the key. So just in case, in a worst case scenario, we know who's down, someone's down there. And if they don't come back, go check. So it's like, not that you want to like,
Nice.
you gotta be safe. So it's like, that's kind of like where we are. It's like things that like cranking along. We got some new grant equipment coming in, the radios. The speaker mics finally came today. And all we need to do is get the radios programmed now, and we can put them out in the street. And it's mine's done, but it's like he just gave it rough programming on mine. It's going to change, but that doesn't matter to me. But they're really nice, and it was that through that AFG grant for $229,000 and some change. And pretty soon they'll be programmed and out rocking and rolling on the street.
Awesome. Well, it seems like things are well under control. Thank you for
Trying,
everything
thank
that you do.
Nope, thank you guys for the support.
You're welcome.
Good. Other questions? Great. Thank you very much, Chief Clark. Great work as always, and you was right. That town is a great team.
Okay, thank you very much. I got to go back to training. Thank you. Take care.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Chief.
Bye-bye.
We're not at time certain yet for the 7:15 poll hearing. I was wondering if Chris, you want to talk about your TA report, and we'll stop that in about 10 minutes and we can pick it up again after the hearing if necessary.
Sure, absolutely. So FY24 budget obviously is the big topic right now. The packages are being prepared and we will be discussing a few components of the package a little bit later on in the meeting. The key kind of deadlines that are upcoming are the performance appraisals that are due this Friday. We will then distribute the packages on Monday, the 14th. We will have a budget kickoff meeting with employees, department heads on November 15th at 10 a.m. And then we're also going to have a budget kickoff meeting on the 15th at 6 p.m. for boards and committees interested in attending. And then the budget requests are due back November 30th. The capital requests were due October 31st. So those have already been compiled onto a Google Drive where the capital committee can access them. So those are underway and everything so far, knock on wood, seems to be going smoothly. So the process is going well. A big component of getting ready for the budget is obviously closing out FY22 and doing our recap sheet and tax rate certification, which we've been working on. And I am pleased to announce that our tax rate was certified today by the state. I have to pass along many, many thanks to our financial team, particularly June, Molly, and Dennis, who worked tirelessly to get that recap sheet done so we could close out the year. We could get our projections in for this coming year and get our tax rate certified so we could start moving forward and get our bills out. So that is great that we are able to move forward with that process. On another positive note, we have signed a purchase order with Modular Communications in the amount of $39,802.19 for the Coburn Taylor Road antenna replacements. The project is anticipated to take 4 to 6 months, weather depending. There is a delay in ordering the antennas, but Chief Clark, Chief Shartner, and myself, including also Ann Camaro from Regional Dispatch, have all kind of put our heads together and come up with what we think was the best plan. And Modular Communications does work with Regional Dispatch. They had presented a plan that made the most sense to everybody involved, and so we moved forward with them. The next step in the project is we'd like to put out an RFP for the remaining build out. Basically, that would give us the opportunity to say, you know, come out, take a look at our project. This is what we want to do, and recommend how you would build it out. Because there are many different ways, as we learned in this very initial part of the project, which was just the antenna replacement, because that was the most immediate urgent need that needed to be addressed from a public safety perspective to get things working at a level where they would be functional. But the rest of the build out is rather extensive, and you're looking at about a $200,000 project. So we want to put out the request for proposals, basically have companies come in, take a look at our system, make recommendations on how it should be built out, and then we can sit down with a committee, go through the proposals, and make a determination on what the best proposal is and how to move forward. So that will be the plan upcoming. Obviously, that will have to be reviewed by the board. Capital will need to take a look at that as well. So we just wanted to make sure we got this initial part moving. Also, as we met, gosh, I guess it's been almost a month on the Hearst House now. We are working on a draft agreement. But we have put together some documents. Mary Porter has kindly agreed to help in drafting the initial agreement, as she has experience drafting agreements with nonprofits. So this would be an agreement between the Historical Society, the Select Board, and the Cemetery Commission regarding parameters for the potential relocation of the Hearst House. There are a lot of details that would be hammered out, but basically this would be a draft agreement that outlines all of the issues that would need to be addressed in order for this to happen. It's very preliminary. But it is a start in the process to have something to bring back to everyone's board to take a look at that really defines how this would happen. So all of the boards can make a decision on how they'd like to move forward. One topic I wanted to discuss with you briefly was regional services. And I don't know how Berlin has handled this in the past or how the current select board feels about this, but the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission is on a big push for regional services. They have reached out to us 3 times now, once for a town planner, once for an economic development coordinator, and a facilities director. I think there needs to be kind of a broader discussion with the board about staffing plans, goals, and projects to determine if they make sense to pursue from a workload and also from a savings perspective, because obviously there is a cost. This is not free labor. This would just be a reduced cost because you'd be sharing it with another town. So we would really need to kind of have, identified work that needs to be done that can't be done by existing employees. And I have to say, in my opinion, and what I've seen so far out of the 3, I think a town planner would be your most beneficial, but that is just my initial read on that. So it's something I'd like to have a further conversation with the board going forward. And continuing to meet with the personnel committee and the FinCom, getting ready for our upcoming budget discussions. The personnel committee did vote unanimously to recommend a 2.5% COLA for non-union, non-contracted personnel, and also to consider additional merit increases based on the outcomes of the performance appraisals that are due November 11th. We also met with our account manager from Maya for our annual insurance review. And one thing we are following up on is our property valuation. We want to make sure that we have enough coverage and that the assessed values of all of our buildings are where they should be, particularly in light of everything that's going on with the real estate market. And so we're going to take another look at that. And they actually have a formula that they use. So we're in the process of pulling the property record cards. We're going to look at square footage and the formula that the insurance company uses and just make sure we have sufficient coverage in case anything should happen with any of our buildings. Great. One more item of great news, which I'm happy to report. The bucket truck is back. It is repaired, and I hope this is the last time I will speak of it. That is the goal. So we are very excited about that. And I know Fred is very happy to have it and to be able to start using it. So that's basically the highlights of the report. If anyone has any questions.
I have a few. Shocking.
Did we do them after?
I think we might do them after the poll hearing since it
Yeah.
is
Yep.
7:13 now. But we'll get to them. I want to take a quick note before I forget what mine was. Okay.
Oh, one more thing I did want to add is we are trying to figure out an IT services contract to cover copiers and printers at the town offices as the current contract does expire December 31st. I believe we are looking at 3 different quotes, including Conway and 2 other companies, Ricoh and I believe Xerox directly for those services, just to see if we can, get the best price possible. It's always good to go out there when a contract is up and look and see what is available. And I think that's it.
Great. We'll jump back to questions after we talk about the National Grid request for a poll. If we want to bring, I think Javier is in the audience to present or be here for questions from National Grid. I don't have, Mary, that I don't have a sort of a formal paragraph like I've had for some other hearings, but I think I just need to just note that this is the 7:15 poll hearing for, she's going to share a screen that's going to tell me what I need to say. Do I actually have to say that? I had that up on my screen a moment ago.
I think just the bottom part, or no, maybe not. Mary knows.
Yeah, I think it's just the bottom part.
Circling the last paragraph.
Right, starting with in its petition dated and received October 19th, Massachusetts Grid. Massachusetts Electric Company doing business as National Grid's petition, the Berlin Select Board for permission to locate poles, wires, fixtures, included the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the following public way. At River Road West, National Grid is to install one solely owned pole to River Road West, beginning at a point approximately 0 feet northeast of the center line of the intersection of South Street Rotary and continuing approximately 1,050 feet in a northeast direction. Install one single solely owned pole number at 7-1, again, approximately 1,050 feet northeast of the South Street Rotary. The location approximately shown on a plan attached and labeled as work order number 3063008, named River Road West, Berlin, Mass, dated October 13th, 2022. This pole is necessary to provide service to 100 River Road West.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah, hi, sorry, I just got audio. I heard the last part of that. I'm Javier Morales, representing National Grid. As you read, I'd like to request approval for a grant of location for a new pole location at 100 River Road to serve a new home that's being built at that location.
if I know correctly, that's locally known as sort of the new Stevens Foundation project. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, that's right.
Kristen, have we gotten any sort of, and we have, I know that we have, I think National Grid has emailed all the or has certified mailed all the abutters. Have we received sort of any commentary both from department heads or from abutters?
All department head was favorable, and we send the notice out to abutters. And so
Okay.
we said that we can send it first class mail that way, and none have been returned as undeliverable.
Okay,
And no,
We also posted it on the website, Facebook, and in the lobby of the building.
right. And Mary, to date, no comments have been received, correct?
There's been no public feedback.
and then is there anyone in the audience with who would like to provide some public feedback to this? Do the select board members have any questions they have?
Pretty straightforward.
Yep, and I'm excited by the resources and energy that's going into that site. It looks like it's coming together nicely. I think then we could be ready for a motion.
Okay. So I would make a motion to place the one solely owned pole on River Road West, pole 7-1, approximately 10 or 1,050 feet northeast of South Street Rotary, as shown, as we have just seen, for service at 100 River Road West.
I second it.
Is there any more discussion among us? No, then Hawkins, aye.
Keith, aye.
Stone Eye.
I think that it passes then. Javier,
All right,
thank
great.
So that's
Thanks,
sitting on the
everyone.
board table for board signature, and then we can have Kristen's a notary, but I already queued this all up for Eloise to notarize this, and she can do it after we have at least 2 signatures.
Okay.
All right, thanks, everyone. Have a nice night.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Thank
Javier.
Thank you.
Close that down. Okay, and so let's get back to sort of then questions for Kristen. Do you want to kick us off, Peg?
So Kristen, question for you, where you talked about the 39,000 and change, I didn't write the change down, 39 peg plus or 10 is close enough. For the antenna replacement, what is the type of any maintenance going on with that? Because I don't want to sit here 10 years from now and be told, oh, the antennas are crap. So is there anything in that they can say they'll install them? They'll come back, they'll look at them, they'll keep an eye on them, etc.
I can look into that, Peg. To be honest with you, I don't have a proposal right in front of me, but I will
Okay.
certainly look into that and I can send an email out to the board.
Okay. And that would probably probably hold true as well for the rest of the projects that need to be looked at, is that that's great. Somebody will come in and do 1, 2, 3, but we need to have them come back and do maintenance and preventative stuff. So we're not in the same boat. And then the other question, you had talked about property valuation. Do we need to do any type of, where's the status of the RFP for the assessments on the buildings to see which ones we're keeping, which ones we're not going to keep, which ones we need to do something with? Do those tie somehow?
So yes and no. Yes, in the sense that we are working on that RFP and that's going to be going out. No, in the sense of until we do anything with the buildings, they do need to remain on insurance until in case anything should happen to the buildings.
Okay. Do you have a time frame ish? And I know, Kristen, that this has been an item, again, that's been kicking around for the longest time. You know, it's not on fire. It's not like, oh my God, we need to do this. You know, budget's approaching and all these other fun stuff. But do you have a date-ish that you're looking on getting the RFP out?
I would say spring.
Okay.
If I can do it sooner, I most certainly will.
No worries. Okay, that was it. That was my 2. Thank you.
Chris?
But I thought of a question. You were talking about different positions that we could consider sharing with another town. And one of the things we've talked about over the years when we've hired the last couple of highway superintendent and building superintendents was whether or not we need a facilities director. So I was just going to make the suggestion that maybe you talk to Fred.
Okay.
And see what he's thinking. You know, whether he needs his load lightened or if he's doing all right. Just to get some feedback on that.
Yes, and Peg, you mentioned that as well. Now that you say that, and I didn't mean to sideswipe that by any means. And actually, West Boylston had reached out, oddly enough, and asked if we wanted to share a facilities director. And this was independent of CMRPC. So I had sent her an email back and said, I'm certainly always happy to sit down and meet and discuss it and see where it goes. And she's brand new as well. So I imagine she's just gotten busy, but I assume we will connect up at some point and have that discussion too.
I think we'll find in the last couple of years, we've reached out to West Boylston, asking that question a couple of points too, and we're between Hive says, or we thought the highway director job might not be doable in its current format, and how to better structure that department to make the job of both the department head and the workers there more doable.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
And since we haven't had a town planner before, maybe you could give us some ideas of what would be part of that job description.
Sure. And I would have to understand a little bit more. And obviously this is something I haven't discussed with planning board or, I understand that Leanne over in the building department does work right now for kind of planning ZBA, a little bit of conservation along with Maddie. It's really would depend on the volume of applications. But the one thing that's really great about having a town planner is they really can foster development almost in a way that an economic development coordinator can, in that they're aware of what's out there that's vacant. When people come to town and they're looking to do different things, they kind of have a sense of what's zoned for where. So say someone comes with a grand idea of, I want to put a business of some sort somewhere that we like. And that she said, that she or he could say, okay, well, this is a great site for it, or no, that's not a great site. And they understand the zoning. They can really say right off the bat when somebody comes in, what would require special permits. And it kind of helps guide projects and processes along a lot better. Again, it would really depend on volume, and it sounds like kind of what we've had here are large sort of one-off projects like the mall, Highland Commons, River Road. But it is sort of helpful to have that one person who's overseeing and really guiding each of those projects as they go through. So
So
that's-
right now, I think we probably just send them to Tim Wheeler.
Tim is sort of our acting unofficial town
Right.
planner. Yeah, exactly. So this would be in a more official capacity if
Yeah.
needed. And I think a shared sort of thing, obviously that's not a full-time position that I would, envision by any shape of the imagination, but it would start with having a conversation with planning board, Tim Wheeler, and see kind of where they're at in terms of managing their workload.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting.
Kristen, around that, I know that it's early in the discussion, and I'm sure that you can't answer this question, but one that begs to be asked. Pay scale and benefits, for all those positions and how that will be handled.
And so I actually am in the process of setting up a meeting with CMRPC and a couple of other surrounding communities to discuss how shared services would work. So once I have that answer, I will get back in touch and let you guys know.
Cool.
Yeah,
Thank
as
you.
a whole, I am, as an individual, at least on the board, very much in favor of trying to do some regionalization where it can potentially bring in, make a position more attractive that we couldn't get potentially on our own. But, Peg is right, is that we also have to make sure that it's still a priority for the town and is affordable. Just because we could get a world's greatest town planner, at 20 hours a week, it would be a great cost for a town planner. Doesn't mean we necessarily have 20 hours a week of town planning activities, or that's the right benefit.
Exactly. So you really have to do an analysis of staffing and projects and figure out if that's something that you'd want to do. But the first step is to find out kind of what the model is that CMRPC is proposing, which communities are interested, how much time they think they need, and how it will be split up, and then kind of go from there.
I mean, I think the regionalization of dispatch, well, it has definitely meant that the person who doesn't necessarily know the town as well as the local dispatchers did. There's a lot of headaches that are not, currently in our things giving us headaches pile, because we regionalized and can have like two people on constantly where we didn't really have the call volume to justify it and things like that. So, well, I think as a whole, I'm at least interested in exploring it, but it still has to make fiscal sense.
I mean, I see what neighboring towns, Marlborough especially, does for EDC. They're holding seminars and they just seem to have, obviously Marlborough is slightly larger than Berlin, but I suppose if that's one area, again, if you can bring in business, then it's going to benefit, taxes for everybody, that businesses are going to want to come here. But, then you need to look at, and then you need to look at, so it's just not, hey, let's make a giant EDC community. It's like, what are all the integral parts? So yeah, Kristen, I can't see that you magically coming up with an answer for us in 48 hours. So.
No, and I just wanted to kind of gauge, the board's interest in me looking into this.
Mhm.
Okay.
That just reminded me, since we're on the town administrator report, that we did get an email from Verizon with interest in the town property, or
Yes.
a piece of town property. And I think that I personally would be interested in hearing more about that. So if you talk further with them,
Sure.
if you could just update us at some point.
I wonder if it might be useful to invite them to come to a
Uh-oh.
meeting.
Mhm.
They're interested in putting in a cell tower, from
Right.
my understanding, on town property.
Yeah.
All right.
Are we ready to move on to old business? Let's see, our first old business is vote on acceptance of the deed for Horseshoe Pond.
So this is one last piece that needed to get voted on, that did not as part of Horseshoe Pond. It did get voted on and signed by the Conservation Commission, and it needs to be done by the Select Board as well.
Yeah, June and I were at that meeting. It was a late ad from town council, and unfortunately, we didn't have it for last Monday when we I kind of turned around to her and she's like, crap. So that's why it's kind of showing up this week, for that.
Sorry, so we need a motion on this?
Motion to accept the deed for Horseshoe Pond.
Seconded.
I don't think there's a lot of discussion. So Hawkins, aye.
Keith, aye.
Stone Eye.
Did I just freeze?
No.
Oh, you guys all froze for me.
So 2024 fiscal year 24 budget.
Okay.
Take it away,
So-
Kristen.
Thank you. Before I jump into kind of my draft budget message and memo and the supplemental funding request form, I wanted to talk to you about, Mary, can you share the letter to the schools, the
From last year.
from last year? Yeah, so there is a letter, or if you, maybe you don't have to share it, Mary, if everyone has access to the Google Drive and they just want to pull up the letter that the schools sent, or that was sent to the schools rather, from the FinCom and the Select Board. It basically talked about staying rather at 2.5%, which is going to be my recommendation as well. So I don't really see an issue with that, but there were a number of other items in the letter that are sort of requests that are sort of a bit, you can request them, but they're a bit beyond, I think, the scope of what the school is required to produce. And from what I understand, we haven't received most of them, which I'm not entirely surprised at. I understand wanting budget estimates and wanting as much of a line item budget as you can have, although of course, keeping in mind that the school is not required to provide a line item budget under Mass General Law. Getting into ESSER funding, OPEB liability, and a projection of their educational goals is getting a little bit, I think, into the weeds of what a regional school district is required to provide to a town. I understand the intent and wanting to get as much information as possible, and they are being called to the FinCom meeting, the first meeting in December. And I've already notified the superintendent that they are requested at that meeting. I just don't know. FinCom wanted to send it again. I didn't know how the Select Board felt about sending the same letter again, if they wanted to, if you all wanted to send something different, if you wanted to have it come just from FinCom. I wanted to just kind of gauge what your thoughts were about the letter, because I don't know the history of kind of how it went over last year, if it was well received, if it was beneficial. I just, to me, that's the kind of letter in my mind you kind of really send once and you may not need to send again, but I'd wanted to get your thoughts on it.
I think what's important is just the percentage increase at this point. And like you said, you could always ask for those things, I suppose, in a nice way. And then whether you get them or not, if they're not required, then they may not send them to you.
I would like to, if I had more say over the letter, would focus more on getting us the budget on time. They were the last thing we had last year, and they represent 60% of our budget. If we don't know if 60% of our budget is requesting $300,000 more or $50,000 less, it really makes it hard for, I think, FinCom, who, and you, Chris, who do a majority of the work, to
Right.
decide where we're going to rely, where we're going to do cuts and where we're going to say yes to people, if we don't know where a majority of our budget is going. And the school board, from my standpoint, has always been very late at getting us that information and always forcing things to be, held or delayed because we don't know how we're dealing with everybody else.
Okay.
And so pushing that home. And I'd love to see how they're going to spend the millions of dollars that we're going to be giving them. But the reality is, even if we think they're, they said they're going to put, gold-plated basketball courts down at 500,000, we could say you're getting $500,000 less, and they could still put down gold-plated, basketball courts. They can decide where they spend and don't spend their funds. And so I think it is important, especially since last year they went well over the 2.5%, even after doing some cuts, that we have to point out that really we're expecting to stick near the 2.5%.
And I think that's.
Kristen, when did you say you were coming to FinCom?
FinCom is Wednesday, I believe, again, next.
Next Wednesday?
Yep. But you said
Yes.
school's the first week of December, and I can't imagine they'll have a final budget by then.
Oh, when are
but-
they coming to FinCom? I thought you said, when am I next going?
No,
to
no, no, when are they
Sorry.
coming?
Let me just check the calendar. Had the calendar up here a minute ago.
We just lost Chris.
Oh. The answer is December 14th, but I have to say I have not received confirmation back from them.
Yeah.
Although I did ask them if they could attend.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason that I ask, I mean, kind of getting back to Scott's point where they were horribly late and horribly over, to try and meet with them as soon as possible to say, we're gonna ask you for the same number again. So can you give us maybe sort of kind of any indication that you're gonna be close, you're gonna be asking for 12%, you're gonna be like, nah, we got this, we don't need anything from you. You know, and to put it out there and kind of like to draw that proverbial line in the sand with them, because I think a face-to-face and, you know, FinCon come, you know, they're at FinCom, maybe the board shows up too, you know, not in numbers, but to say it's a unified presence that this is what, you know, be our partner and work with us and we will work with you as well, compared to a letter, oh, that's great, who cares, file it.
Well, and I think the point too, December 14th is the first FinCom meeting where they review department budget requests.
Yep.
Did ask that the schools and fire attend that meeting. Fire has already confirmed. So they
Okay.
wanted them at the very first one.
Yeah.
So we could get started and hopefully move the process along timeline wise a bit better
Yeah.
than it has gone in the past.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to put your bigger ticket items up first of, you know, I need $1 bazillion compared to, hey, $20, just give me $20 and I'll be happy. Okay.
Right.
And then I think there's a limit to what we're going to be able to continue on with Chris having dropped off unexpectedly.
But we have a quorum. There's 2 of us. So technically we can keep going. I mean, I think that we give her like 5 minutes to come back on, but since we have the 2 of us, it was like when you were gone last week, Scott, there were 2 of us, so we just kept chugging.
Right, but we knew that there was going to be 2 of us, as opposed to, I believe there's actually special rules related to technical problems during meetings. Although that could be technical problems that affect the meeting as a whole, as opposed to a particular member, because you're right, we do have quorum at the moment.
Right.
Well, hopefully quorum for the rest of the meeting, and hopefully she
Yeah.
finds a way to get back to us soon, so.
Right. And then honestly, I mean, it's just, you know, Kristen's just giving us her skinny on the budget. And then there's just, you know, one more vote that we need to have.
I just texted Chris to see, and I have not heard back yet, just if and when I hear, I will let you know.
Okay. And I haven't, I'm not going to ask the board to take any votes on any of this, but I'm
Right.
certainly happy to wait if you prefer, for a few minutes or, whatever works best for you both, Scott.
No, I mean, I think you asked for some feedback. I think I would allow and encourage if Chris ends up having feedback on that letter, that she, you know, can send it to you and you just accept that. Because again, you're looking for feedback anyway. And so we could have done that independently, separate from a meeting. It's just nicer to have done it in a meeting.
Sure.
You know, there is possible.
Okay.
Peg, do you have any other questions or do you have, sorry, Chris, do you have other things to say about, because you jumped into the letter, but for the budget memo or the supplemental funding request?
The supplemental funding request, I just wanted to say, June and I talked about this. This would be something new for this year. Every other form, we decided to leave the same. I didn't want to rock the boat too much right off the bat, or, you know, if it's not broke, don't fix it kind of thing. However, there tends, in June and I, in our discussions, she pointed out there tend to be new items that people kind of request every year, and they sort of just get mashed in with everything else, and you don't really get to see them. And sometimes they end up in the narrative, but they don't necessarily make it into the budget, or vice versa. So this form would actually call attention to a specific item. So say you need it, and it can be a one-time expense. It could be an annual ongoing expense. So say you needed a filing cabinet would be one. Another one would be like a software program. That would be obviously an ongoing expense. If you needed to add, say, a 4-hour employee to your office. And that way you guys, the FinCom, Select Board, everybody gets to look at it and you can see anything that's an add. And then you have all those together, you can make a decision on, is there enough funding to make those? And there's just 3 questions I asked is, just to describe the request, explain the need for it. And I think this is an important question. How will you meet this need should this request not be funded? Because I'd really like to hear are we really backed into a corner on this one? Or is there another way that we can get away without spending those funds? Because I don't want to spend funds needlessly.
Well, it's not just needlessly. I think all the town departments in there and the things they like to spend money on are reasonable things to spend money on. It is just that money is not unlimited, and part of the tough decisions are what are we consciously not going to do. And so sometimes like, oh, I could see how adding let's use the planning director. I see how adding a planning director would be beneficial to the town, but given everything else going on, is it X dollars beneficial to the town? And that we acknowledge that we will be light in potentially, planning staffing because we've chosen that we have to fund something else that's more critical. Like, I don't want to bias any sort of budget stuff, but that sort of conversations.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think too, it's just a clear, line in the sand of want versus need. Everybody wants the bright, shiny, look at this, hey, this is really sweet. But, what is the actual need for it? And yeah, I mean, Kristen, I don't envy you and the rest of us and the FinCon peeps, to go back and say no, but yeah, I have my opinion too, and I won't let them go here just yet. But to me, there's some critical items that I'm digging my heels in and I'm going after, for that. So, we'll have a good battle royale when it comes time.
Well, and I think, Kristen, a potential weakness of having a supplement ad form, it assumes that things we're currently spending money on are worthy of spending money on. And I think that really there could be processes and systems that are just not adding value to the town anymore, where a new project would add more value than something that we're currently doing. And I don't have any great examples, but with COVID has changed a lot of processes and a lot of systems, and there could be old ways of doing things that there are just, again, they just don't add the value to the town they used to.
Well, and I think you could make that justification here too,
Mhm.
and say this is replacing something that's antiquated, and yes, it's a slight more cost, but your return on your investment is this. So
Right.
I just thought it might be nice to sort of literally have a stack of these forms and almost be able to rate and rank them like Capital does with their projects.
I agree.
All
Good
right.
job. Thank you for doing that.
Yep, absolutely. And then the last one is the draft budget memo. Let's see. We have basically, I don't know if you've all seen it or you can look at it. Just kind of walked through what everybody knows is going on: supply chain issues, inflation, energy price spikes. Oh, there's Chris.
Sorry about that.
Hi,
Welcome.
Chris.
I don't know what's going on here.
We just, I didn't know if you had any other comments on the letter.
Oh, the letter to the schools?
Yes.
No, I already just made the one comment about the percentage increase and
Mhm.
Okay, and then I just talked about that supplemental funding request form where, which was new this year for anyone who wanted to add a new project, just so we could have all the new projects in a pile and, kind of like Capital does, we could go through and see what we have funding for, what was ranked higher, or what have you. And then I was just starting to go into the actual memo itself. So basically everything's going up. The consumer price index for our area is 8.1% as of the September 2022 report, which the new one, I believe, is either came out today or is coming out today, but I had already finished this memo, coming out tomorrow rather. And the largest increases were impacting energy, which was a 31% increase in food prices, which were a 12.2% increase over the past 12 months, which is just huge. It also should be noted that over the year, the index for all items except food and energy rose by a total of 5.9%, including shelter, which rose by 4.8%, vehicles, new and used, which rose by 12.6%, and medical care, which rose by 6.8%. So just putting some numbers to the economic situation that we're all already familiar with being in. And to address these increases, many agencies are talking about increased COLAs or cost of living adjustments. MMHR has been collecting data on COLAs that are being proposed by cities and towns for 2023. And the survey data shows so far is showing anywhere from a 1% to a 4.7% increase, with the average falling just under 2.5%. I believe it was 2.39% the last time I checked, but cities and towns are still adding in. That's only about a quarter of the cities and towns that have responded so far. Social Security is going to add an 8.7% COLA, which is the largest inflation-fueled increase in benefits in more than 40 years. And the state retirees as of July 1 received a 5% cost of living to address inflation. On the revenue side of the shop, our local projections do continue to trend positively. State aid reductions are not anticipated in the coming year, and local receipts are trending higher in 22 than in 21, with significant increases in hotel tax, motor vehicle excise, and building permit revenue. So given kind of all of those factors, I met with the personnel committee before I left for my honeymoon, and we had a discussion. I recommended a 2.5% COLA, and they did agree and voted unanimously to make a recommendation on that COLA as well. That is something we would need the select board to take a vote on. As I mentioned before, that is for non-union, non-contract employees, and the committee will also still consider wage adjustments or merit increases based on those reviews that are still coming in. So I wanted to just pause there for a second before I get into the process part of the budget to talk about the cost of living increases and get some feedback from you all.
So would you like a motion, Scott?
I would. I have some discussion points on it once you make it, so go ahead.
Okay. I would make a motion to support Kristen's recommendation for a 2.5% increase, just like the personnel committee did.
I'll second it.
I'll go just first in comments. I continue to push that I think our cost of living should be much a flat dollar amount as opposed to a percentage, because percentages continues to increase the gap between the highest paid and the lowest paid employees in town. And it is the lowest paid employees that are hurt most by this inflation rates than it is the higher ones, because the higher wage earners, already have a lot of disposable income, where the people in town at the lower end are going to be struggling the most. I do not feel so strongly about it that I would hold this up or delay it, but I would continue us to encourage to look at these as dollar amounts and not percentages.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, we know that there are people who support the town that year over year that raises have been denied by FinCom, that there are people that, personnel did a great job over the past few years. They're bringing people who were really, really low up. But there are still people who really, really do a lot of work and go above and beyond that. This will be another, rumble to, talk about here's your 2.5% and then insert name here because you have done wink and blink and nod and 15 other things, I'm going to push that you should get X, over somebody else. And I think, Kristen, that's going to be the most important part on these reviews, because from years back when Chris and I were doing this, either they weren't done or it would just be, Kristen gets a 4 and Kristen gets another 4 and one more with zero explanation, as to why, why a 4. And it's not because you're doing your job. Everybody's doing their job, so to me, you start at 3 and you go up. So because you show up on time and because you process and because you do when you answer phone calls, that to me isn't justification for, hey, Billy gets a 10% increase on his COLA, in addition to his COLA. It's like, no, if you're saying a 4 or you're saying a 5, I want to see extraordinary things all the time that you're doing, not just hey, you held the door open once for 25 people. So, that's my background. That's where I fight all the time for that. So that's just going to be an interesting part of the question, because it's going to beg the question of, that's great. So-and-so needs an increase. Hey, here's a new position. It's going to need an increase. What's getting cut? What's getting totally eliminated in the budget, because you can't continue to push this on the taxpayers of the town just to say, woohoo, here's money. And all of a sudden our $13-14 million budget now goes up to 18-19 million. That's just that's not factual. Don't anybody track me down, for that amount. But just saying, we need to realistically look that if you're asking for, making it up, $1 million budget, what are you willing to cut out on your side to find that extra money? That's where I'm at. So, for that, I know there's going to be a lot of lively discussion. I'm looking forward to it with a lot of justifications, but you can't keep asking without giving. And yeah, the past few years have been really tight. Margaret held a great hand on the wheel, for the 2.5, and everybody, agreed we need to keep that momentum going and not just, oh, look, we're kind of out of COVID. I can spend money. I can ask for a lot more money. You can ask. May not get it, but you can ask.
Well, and to that point, Peg, too, I didn't get this far in the memo, but the 2.5 I was recommending be held on expenses as well. Unless you're putting in the supplemental request, and then that is an above and beyond that the board would have to consider.
Mhm. Agreed.
All right, are there more commentary? Do you want to vote on this motion?
Sure.
Okay, I'll go first. Hawkins, aye.
E5.
Stone Eye.
So 2.5% calls.
Thank you, personnel. Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you all. And then the next piece is, as I just mentioned, given all of this information, looking at 2.5% increase being held for expenses. As always, there would be a limited qualified exception that would be made for a non-discretionary increase if it had to do with a contract and assessment with Worcester. If Worcester Regional went up, or if the insurance went up slightly, or if there was debt service, anything like that, a utility cost. Those are exceptions that are qualified. Market rate adjustment or merit step increase as recommended by personnel would obviously fall outside of that. Otherwise, everything else goes down into the supplemental funding request. So basically, the bottom line department budget request must not exceed 2.5% over the appropriation that was approved at the May 2022 annual town meeting, unless a qualified exception, as discussed, justifies a bottom line increase of greater than that. There's a checklist that's enclosed to help make sure everything gets completed. Basically, contracts need to be attached, backup documentation needs to be attached, and everything is due electronically and hard copy as well to the town accountant Wednesday, November 30th at 4 p.m. And as you all probably know, once how the process works, the accountant looks at it and then they're sent to me to include in the working budget draft document, which then gets distributed to the select board and the finance committee. Department budget meetings with FinCom start in mid-December, and then the select board can request to have meetings with individual departments as well. And of course, the caveat that budget reductions may be necessary if revenues are not sufficient to fund budget requests, or if alternate cost efficiencies are identified, as Scott was mentioning. So further instructions would be provided in the event that such reductions are necessary. We do, it's always smart to couch it in that, because you never know as you go through things what might happen. We don't anticipate cuts to state aid, but stranger things have happened. So. And so that's
Kristen,
that
how hardline are you?
in terms of
It's
sticking to the
now-
2.5%.
No, it's now November 30th. I don't have my budget done. Sorry. Can I get it to you Friday? Your response is,
No,
thank you. So basically, you're
I need it
flat.
today.
Yeah, if you miss the door,
I mean,
If
if
you-
you're like in the hospital, understandable, but I mean,
you just haven't gotten it together and figure I can get it in late. 30th, 4 o'clock, it shuts down. So sad, too bad, you're flat from last year.
correct.
And so
Okay.
does that include the schools? Who typically don't get us their budgets till March?
That's a little bit trickier. We
Yeah.
can try that, but I don't know if
There's
we're
other boards
gonna,
and commissions that might not have meetings between November 14th and November 30th. There's a holiday in there. And so I'm hoping that we have all of our major departments in. But I think some boards and commissions, especially run by volunteer, where their budget frankly is not going to be overly material. The cultural commission, even if they double their budget and we're wild and crazy, we're still talking $2,000 and $4,000 and not $500,000. Now, I don't want them doubling it because every penny is every penny, but I don't think that's going to hurt our budget negotiations that horribly if some of the boards and commissions had until the beginning of the year.
I
I
mean,
know, but
the challenge is
Kristen, I'm
having that
sorry.
2-week period. And I understand it's only 2 weeks. You can give people longer, but I have found in my experience, you start to give people 4 weeks, they wait till the last minute to do it anyways, and then things don't come in. If there is an extenuating circumstance, such as a committee was unable to get together with a quorum, we can have that conversation, but this is a hard deadline of November 30th at 4 p.m. I would very much like it to be followed.
Well, and and you got to think about it too. There's been a few new people that have come on committees, but there really hasn't been a big turnover. So this should not come as a surprise to anybody that they know at the end of November, it's time to turn in your worksheets,
Right.
and you're going to be meeting with them. And I'm sure Mary will be sending out more information, bold it, underline it, italicize it. If you
Absolutely.
don't have a meeting schedule, get a meeting schedule. It's not that hard a concept.
Well, and we have not deviated from the process at all. This is following the same timeline that was followed last year, and I assume was followed prior to that as well.
Okay.
So that is all I have, in case, unless June, I believe, is on. If June wants to say anything or add anything, or if anyone has any questions.
Notice she's not putting her hand up.
June, did I cover it all?
Oh, she's sitting, here she comes.
Oh. Is she being pulled or pushed into the meeting?
Let's ask June how she feels about the November 30th deadline.
Here she comes.
She was there, but she went away.
No, I'm here. I think Kristen summed it all up. I think the only thing that I'd add is just in prior times, if there is an issue, as long as they contact Kristen as far as not being able to get a budget in, work with her as far as getting a budget in on time, as far as reasoning. But that was pretty much it.
Yeah, please let me know as soon as you can if you have an issue, right, right off the bat. That's very helpful. All right, that's all I have.
So we should schedule the select board budget conversation for our budget on the 14th so that we can, or the 28th. Between one of those two meetings, we should have our conversation what the select board budget should be so that we can make the deadline ourselves, because it would look bad if for somehow we don't make our own deadline.
So the 14th or the 21st?
For some reason in the draft agenda folders, there's only meetings for the 14th and 28th.
Is that something that usually draft for us? Kristen?
Yes,
So if you draft, whenever you have a draft ready, then you could let Scott know and,
I
Yep.
certainly can.
or forward it to us too, I suppose.
Mary's beating me to it. Okay, is there other questions or stuff for Kristen on the budget? I thought that was quite informative and looks good. At this point, we're still on track. I think that brings us to new business. Kristen,
Oh.
it is we've had a retirement proposed.
We have, sadly, I did receive a letter from Treasurer Collector Dennis Fairbay that he will be retiring in February, and I'm just pulling up the exact date here. If you can
It
give
was
me
like the 3rd.
a
Yeah.
second. Yeah. Let's see.
Yes, February 3rd.
So his last day will be February 3rd. Obviously, this is a huge loss to the town. Dennis has been with the town for a very long time and brings a wealth of knowledge, and even in my short time here has been tremendously helpful to me. So this is not something that I would tell you is easy to fill. In all honesty. And I think we may have talked a little bit about this previously. On any given day, if you go on MMA on their job posting, there's 4 to 6 treasurer positions
Yep.
that are there. It is not a field that people go into. Unfortunately, little boys and girls don't grow up saying, I want to be a treasurer collector. It's not really on people's radar. It's not something folks go to school for. It is sort of something people kind of fall into. Municipal government is becoming more taught in colleges than it was before, which is wonderful. But we are seeing a huge gap right now between folks that are retiring in the leadership positions and particularly in financial positions, and just a gap in, people not coming up to fill those positions on the back end. So with that in mind, I can tell you that Dennis will be very greatly missed. And before I go any further into kind of a plan for going forward, the board would need to accept his retirement notice.
I can
Like,
make,
and we have to. We can't just say, Dennis, you have to stay here for another 10 years.
You can try.
Go for it, Chris.
I would, where am I here? I would make a motion to accept the notice of retirement from Treasurer Collector Dennis Fairbay.
I'll second.
I think I speak at least for me, if not for everyone here. It's both with reluctance, but with also profound gratitude and thankfulness for the years that he has and will in the next several months that he's given us plenty of notice to hopefully do a decent transition plan to whatever the next is for us. And Hawkins, aye.
Keith, aye.
So and I.
Motion.
I got-
passes.
Yes, motion passes there. And then recruitment process, hiring. I don't believe we have to come to any final sort of stuff today, but Kristen, you want any sort of guidance from us? Well, good.
I would like to get this posted as soon as possible. I would like to at least get the feeler out there on the Mass Municipal Association, just to kind of see what's out there, who's available. I mean, it's gonna be a difficult one, and you know, the salaries are high for these positions.
Mhm.
That's the challenge, and I know nobody wants to hear that. But that's unfortunately the reality, because it is such a critical position in local government. I mean, treasurer collectors often go on to become town administrators. They understand the inner workings of finance, much like accountants do as well. It's I would love to get an ad up almost tomorrow, literally, on the Mass Municipal Association page, because my fear is we may not get anyone and we may have to turn to a recruiter. And I am really hoping that that is not the case. But I want to make sure we have enough time to try it ourselves first before we have to go down that path, because that path is costly and I like
Yeah.
to avoid it if at all possible. So I would have to look at the scale, but I would be thinking you're really somewhere in the $70,000 to $80,000 range.
I think if I looked it up correctly this morning, I thought our current budget is like 78 to 79 range. And the postings currently on MMA, all but one of them was significantly higher than that.
Yeah.
And the one that was in that range was only a little bit lower. And I would fear that the number of applicants follows the salary range a little bit.
It does. I
Yeah,
mean,
because I looked over the weekend and I stopped looking. I got Needham, Westboro, Westcott, and Sharon. And I won't even tell you what I came up with for averages for a low to high. Definitely way above what you just quoted, Kristen. But again, you know, it begs the question of, I understand we have to pay it. Do I want to pay it? No. Do we have to pay it? Yes. But what else? You know,
right.
gets cut. So,
I mean, I'd like to do a little more research in, I mean, a lot of those places, and you know, my whole philosophy about our location drives a lot of our salary, but those are also cities, which so I would argue those are higher than our market.
Yep.
So what I would recommend is, I'll prepare a job ad, and I think, or a job ad, if that works for the board, look at some comps, and I can talk around to some communities nearby, and I could prepare something for the next select board meeting if that works for you.
And I also just don't want us to be penny wise and pound foolish,
Mhm.
that if we end up not having someone by the end of this, we end up having to advertise it a couple of times, that I wouldn't, I think there might be something short of doing the whole process that I forget the name of the company right now. I want to call it MRI or MCI or whatever.
MRI.
MRI has done for our other hires. If there's something like, can they help us with beating the bush to get applicants? Can they help us, you know, advise us on salary ranges and other things like that, that it will improve the chance of applicants, where we still might do all the vetting and interviews and other stuff ourselves, but do something smaller. Because as you point out, we're going into budget season. We have other things on the plate. And this is one of those things I don't want us to do wrong.
do we have, instead of using MRI, do we have, I'm sure we do, it's floating around here, all the compensation study from the, you're shaking? Okay.
Yep.
All right,
Yep, that's what I was just gonna ask Peg.
all right.
And I would love us to, I think anytime there's an opening like this, to also look at job responsibilities around the building, and like, what are things that we could remove from this that would make the job a little bit more appealing to someone? What are things that we could add to make it more appealing? There is an assistant in that office, you know, what's the breakdown between what the treasurer collector does and the assistant treasurer collector does? And how much do we have say, like, how much of the rules, regulations tell us what this job description must do and must not do? I know that Dennis has done a lot of like HR and related stuff at times, and how much of that falls there or other places.
That makes sense. So I can work on that. Is our goal or intent to meet next Monday, or are we meeting in 2 Mondays?
So we're meeting on the
I,
14th.
I think there's the need to meet next Monday because we have an advertised date and time of a public hearing.
Okay,
We have to meet next week. Anyway, we actually have a decently full agenda of new business items already, but
that's what I thought, Scott. You and I just hadn't had a chance to discuss it, so I didn't want to presume.
no,
Okay, so I can have something prepared for next Monday.
Yep.
Okay.
I think that brings us to board questions, comments, and liaison updates. Chris, do you want to start?
I think, Peg, do you have those pictures on your?
Yeah, so Kristen, you had alluded, or Scott, I think you did, about LL
I know,
Bean.
I was bummed I wasn't
Um,
around.
Peg
Hold
and, Peg and I ended up going to the LL Bean grand opening. The store is very nice,
Mhm.
and we ended up taking a couple of photos outside with the LL Bean boot.
But we strategically stood
Yes.
in front of the boot. So there's one. We're in the back of the boot. And
Hey, now, wait a minute. See this?
I know,
Now that is where it says Hudson, Mass.
I know,
Yeah.
that's my pet peeve of everything up there, by the way, because
Yep.
the
I know it.
urgent care
Well-
is officially in Berlin and they're called urgent care of Hudson, and it's because
Well-
somewhere we made the agreement that Hudson was gonna deliver all the mail up there, so they all have Hudson mailing addresses.
well,
Yeah.
so we took another picture, here, hang on, and we moved to the front of the boot. So that there was no green sticky. So there we are in the front of the boot.
Yay.
Yeah, but no, as we were having that discussion, I don't know what will come of it, but we really kind of made it loud and clear that you're not Hudson, you're Berlin. Berlin voters allowed you to have this, and the donation, though it was very kind and thoughtful to the organization that they donated to, Berlin's not allowed to participate in the benefits of that donation, so I don't know where that is going for that. So,
Well, I mean, we could share that the donation was to Metro West Boys and Girls Club.
yeah,
Does not include Berlin.
nope, because we're in a different district, so Berlin boys and girls can't go to the club over in Hudson or Marlboro or Framingham, and the woman that we spoke to, I think was a little surprised at
Didn't
that,
really.
but that caught me as a little surprise too, of you're moving into a town,
And you
do
don't.
your
know
homework, so, Kristen, I don't know, I don't know what it makes it look like if we go back to them but yeah, all the advertisements and all the things all over Facebook, it took everything in my power not to respond and say, it's not Hudson, it's Berlin, but I'm thinking, I saw Liz in my head, for like open meeting and violations, so every time I saw it, I just shut my laptop and walked away. But yeah, great
Wonder if
store,
it's
but I think
something-
they did a disservice to the town announcing that it was in Hudson.
Was it in the newspaper at all? Was it in,
Hmm?
well, would it be in the Clinton item?
I don't know. But all the advertisements all over the internet were LL Bean grand opening, Hudson, Mass, Hudson, Mass.
It's their mailing address.
I know.
Right, I know. That was probably a big mistake.
Yeah.
But the store is very nice.
Mhm.
The personnel was very nice. The boot was very nice.
Mhm. Hey, I did go up and snap a picture of Rico Petroselli, so I'm very, very happy about that. Number 6, third baseman for the team, and the World Series trophy, the last one that the Red Sox won, and Wally was roaming around, so I got him as well. But Okay.
I mean, is there, it be something that maybe we should draft a letter? Just a
Kristen?
a letter of disappointment, maybe, or?
So, but before I was on the select board, as a citizen of the town, since I have sadly frequented the urgent care several times, I had many conversations with managers up there about how they call themselves, urgent care of Hudson, even though they're in Berlin. And they said they ended up picking that because they thought it'd be confusing to say that they were the urgent care of Berlin when their mailing address clearly says Hudson. And so it's the mailing address that made them choose the name they have. And I'm sure it's the mailing address that, when corporate LL Bean is putting together all this stuff for their new grand opening, sees the word Hudson in the address
Yeah.
of the store. And that's when they do all their advertising there in Hudson.
Well,
And
I
Abbott
just
Cabela's
think-
does what they do because their mailing address is also Hudson and they, do a lot for the town.
But Cabela's too, to their, worth when all the advertisements were coming out when they first came into the town and, you'd listen to the radio and be, come see our new store in Berlin. I think it took about 3 times for that to show up on the radio until the town reacted. And then the next commercial you had was, come see our store in Berlin, Mass. So.
Yep.
I know, it's a fine line. I don't know.
I'm sure there's probably a way to write a politely disappointed letter that says, hey, you're in our town and we're so excited to have you. We really wish that
Berlin.
you would acknowledge that you're here. I don't know. I mean, something along those lines. I can certainly think on it and see if I can come up with something, a draft that you all could take a look at.
Yeah, well, I mean, even if maybe Mary would even like to take a stab at it, as long as it's something that's
Nice.
disappointed,
Yeah, Mary, you did great with the thank you letter for the Halloween costumes, so I'm going to
Yes.
delegate that one to you. I'm sure she's sending me a fiery text message right now. We'll
Thanks for
work
being
on it.
voluntold. Thanks for being voluntold, Mary. Appreciate your help. Yeah. Okay.
We'll come up with something, and I think we can make it just like welcome to town. We're really happy to have you. By the way, you're in Berlin. Not Hudson.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
and disappointedly, our children in town cannot attend the
Metro West.
Right,
Boys
the
and Girls
the
Club.
benefits of your donation. Yeah.
Right. It's very kind. You wish to make a local donation. However, it does not benefit our community.
right.
Oh, that's good. That tugs on the heartstring. Well done, Kristen. Well done.
That's the liberal arts education working for you there. They teach you how to say things with a lot of BS.
See, this is why you get to write those letters instead of Peg writing those letters. So very, very different, distinctions. So kind of like June won't let me near the books, plus or minus 10. Either way, don't care. Yep.
Oh, well, that's all we have for liaison updates, or,
You
No,
have-
I have mine.
oh, okay,
Go ahead.
I'm all set.
Yep.
Yep.
So I sent out earlier this week, the October update. Whoops, I missed it by a week or so for the item. Now that Jan is back working for the item and their new owners, I have complete confidence that we're going to receive awesome service. So if we could plop that one on the agenda for a quick review. It mainly, the crux of the letter was, an interview with Kristen, hey, you've been here for a couple months. How you doing? What are we doing? A shout out to Carolyn McDonald. She received an award from SVT for her conservation work. So wanted to, publicly acknowledge that. And then also, hey, Adam, welcome aboard to Highway, have you here. So, so that went out. And then speaking of our meeting for next week, I don't know if we had moved or we're going to move the 1870 sewer / leach field discussion to next Monday. So I have sent an email to Evan Carloni and Bill Brookings and reached out to First Parish Church, their committee, to see if anybody would like to come. Again, just give an opportunity to find out what's going on, what can we do, what are next steps forward, have everybody hear the same thing. and ask questions. I did send an email to Earthworks to find out what they're going, what they're gonna do, if anything, on the bylaw that they passed over in May for the combined like-kind soil and importation. And that was it. Yeah, that was it. All mine.
I don't really have it. I've been gone for 2 weeks and I'm just remembering, that the sun actually now sets at obnoxiously early hours. So. Although I've not turned my heat on yet because I left before I ate the last cold snap and came back to whatever this is we're at now. So
You'll turn it on tomorrow. It's gonna be 50.
I know I might have another day but I made it to November 1st. That's always my goal every year anyway. I think that might be a meeting.
So would you
Anything
like a
else?
motion? Would you like
Go
a
for it.
motion to adjourn?
Yes, please.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Seconded,
Hawkins, aye.
G5.
Stone Eye.